I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Almost got confused there. Next, we have invocation, and for that, Nick Lawson said he'd do that for us.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to live in a country and in a state and in a city which allows us the freedom to express our views without being persecuted. Dear Heavenly Father, allow each and every council member here today to think upon you as we go through this business with our budget and do our best to have your wishes be done. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If everybody will please silence your cell phones so we can have a quiet meeting. Audience participation is on the screens. If anybody wishes to speak during any of the items listed, please see somebody over there and they'll give you a little form to fill out. 2A is the 24-25 budget workshop. 2B is consideration and action regarding the proposal of the tax rate and notice of public hearing. So we'll go to 2A first. Ms. Kim.
Thank you, Mayor, or Councilmember Junkersfeld and City Council. So tonight we'll go over the last 4 funds. Throughout the spring and summer, we've touched on an overview of all of the funds that comprise the proposed budget, and these are the last 4 funds. We were waiting on the certified values, which we received last Thursday, in order to calculate the tax rate, which impact these funds that are left to the last. I had a few revisions in my haste to get the slides out to you on Friday. I had a few errors in it. So I've got the corrected ones are on the screen, and that's why the corrected ones are printed out for y'all too. So we'll start right in. Let's see. On the revenue side, we'll start with that. The proposed tax rate is equal to the de minimis tax rate. What I sent out to you was from last year, voter approval tax rate. That's not correct. This is correct. And everything that is going to be advertised will be the de minimis rate. We'll talk specifically about the tax rates in a few slides, but this is just an overview of the revenues for the general fund. The proposed tax rate, the de minimis rate, is about 1/2 cent less than the current tax rate. Now, that's not to say it's a tax reduction, but the rate is reduced. Our sales tax are projected to be 3% over the current year adopted. That's not to say it's what we anticipate collecting in the current year. As I mentioned when we went over CCPD and Street Maintenance Fund, we had a one-time adjustment that made our current year collections more than they would normally be in a current year. But we are projecting 3% over the current year adopted rate for sales tax collections. And our year-to-date collections are 5% adjusted for the anomaly, the adjustment, 5% over the same period last year. We're estimating franchise fees to be up, and that's for a couple of reasons. Our garbage accounts we've got more residents, more accounts, so we'll be collecting more franchise fees from the garbage company, and then also for utility rates. We're anticipating utility rate increases, and eventually that trickles down to increased franchise fees that we will collect. For court fines and fees, we're continuing the positive trend in that area, and that's entirely a result of fewer vacancies in the police department and increased traffic enforcement. Recreation fees are also projected to go up based on our current trends, about 14% over the current year adopted. We're back to pre-COVID attendance, especially at the Aquatic Center. Building permit fees, we're increasing those over the current year adopted, and the majority of that is due to continued building. Next year, we'll have continued building at the cottages up at Belt Mill, and then more building at the Tricon next year. The rental inspection fees are also projected to increase, and because we've got more rental units, we'll have more rental inspection fees. We also have, it's not a significant amount, but we started this year charging for police detention services to Blue Mound and EMS ISD, so we have some revenue in that area. Overall, interest earnings will be up too. I'm projecting an increase about $840,000 over the current year budget. And that's for two reasons. Interest earnings continue to hang in there higher than what we thought they would be. They haven't dropped like they were projected to. But on the other hand, our balances are going down, and the biggest one is capital projects, right? Our balances are going down because we're working on those projects. But overall, interest earnings will still be up for next year. If you look at the total general fund, revenues for next year, including transfers, will be up about 11% over the current year adopted budget. On the expense side, I have them broken down between ongoing and one-time expenses. The biggie here is what we were assigned to do. Y'all said the priority was option 2 of the pay plan. That equated to, in the general fund, including the salaries and the benefits, Social Security and TMRS, $1.8 million. That was a big bite to take in 1 year, but we've got it accomplished in this proposed budget based on the de minimis tax rate. And if you recall, option 2 will bring all of the employees up to the pay grade plus the step that is appropriate for their years in that position. The pay plan, or the pay study, did not say anything about part-time positions, but part-time positions do have in the proposed budget a 3% increase. The majority of our part-time employees are currently at $15 an hour. A 3% increase would bring them to $15.45 an hour.
Do you know what the cost of living inflation was this year?
I have that in a current slide. It's 5% from year to year, the DFW CPI.
5%.
Yeah, we added that at the request of a council member. So later on in our slides, you'll see
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Because we're increasing salaries, there needs to be a corresponding increase in overtime budgets, right? Otherwise, your overtime would basically be cut if you don't increase it to match salaries.
How much of our budget of salary is overtime? Sorry, I just thought of that.
How much is overtime?
Yeah. If
I
you
don't
don't know,
know.
that's okay.
I don't know. I can tell you that the overtime increase is 66,000
Okay.
across all
Oh,
departments.
crossfall, okay.
The majority of that is in police and fire, though. Public Works is also pretty significant, but police and fire are by far the largest, which they are the largest departments, so that makes sense. We have good news on the workers' compensation side. We're projecting a decrease based on TML rates of almost $150,000, and that's due to fewer claims, which is a good thing. We don't know, we haven't heard yet for property and liability, so the proposed budget includes the current year property and liability rates, which was about $67,000 more than what was adopted. And that's just a factor of getting more of the property on the schedules. I think HR's done a really great job in looking to see what we didn't have on the schedule that needs to be on the schedule. And then next year we have included, well, no, actually we don't, I'm sorry. I was going to say the new building, but that won't hit until 25, 26. But we can expect a rather substantial increase to cover that building. Ongoing expenses are also increased for the network security, for the Dark Trace contract. That is basically to cybersecurity. We have included Computer replacements, to move it up a year from a 5-year replacement cycle to a 4-year replacement cycle. They're just not lasting for 5 years, so there's a cost involved in that, about $24,000. And again, these are just all to maintain our current service levels, so costs that are increasing to maintain our current service levels. And then about $22,000 for street sign signal maintenance supplies.
So I had a question. So Gabe, I did send a question about these IT servers and about going to the cloud. Most even cities are going to the cloud, even secure things. So if we buy these next year, then that means that we're good for the next 4 years?
So my understanding, and I sent a response out, I spoke with Greg. We are moving to be completely in the cloud within a couple of years as far as our servers are concerned. The majority of the expense is the actual desktop peripherals.
Okay.
Desktop computers.
So this isn't servers then, it always says servers and
I
computers.
think
So
there's been
this is
some
the
increase in
computers.
cost with cloud-based services, but, but
Yeah.
the plan is to transition to the cloud.
Okay, good. So
Later
Appreciate
on,
that.
you'll see one of the one-time requests is for a new ERP system. So STW, which is our current finance, payroll,
Yeah.
HR system, is going away. We're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And either way, that's going to be, no matter who we choose as a provider, that will be cloud-based. So eventually, we will be phasing out of that.
Yeah.
But it's going to take time. It won't happen next year. It'll probably take us 2 years.
yeah, it's definitely the way to go.
And then we've got you'll recall a few months ago, or maybe it was a little longer than that, the contractual IT services, which was the iWork, helping our in-house IT people. We will have an increase in the amount that we pay Tarrant Appraisal District for the appraisal expenses. It's about an $18,000 increase, and that has to do with their software that they're going to need, as well as beefed up cybersecurity. Credit card processing fees are going up, although I wanted to mention this because it looks like it's about $8,000, but really the enterprise fund reimburses the general fund for this because the credit card processing fees are built into our rates. And then all of the other credit card processing fees for court and some of the other ones are borne by the customer.
So our processing fee, this is already calculated into that? So it's
Yes,
a
sir.
wash.
Yeah.
Because as Eamon asked, I know when I go to some places, if I use a credit card, they charge me that back. So I was aiming to say, why don't we do that?
That's right. And going forward, anything that we've added from the last few years, that's the way we do it. But utility is the majority of the credit card transactions, and that's built into the rates.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Just to maintain the current mowing contract, and I think it's a 3% cost increase as part of the contract, that's going to be an additional $80,000. The Saginaw Channel operations, I think, which was approved at the last council meeting, is $13,300. There's a contract for the outdoor warning siren maintenance, which is a little over $6,000. Janitorial services will go up 3% for about $30,000, plus we're estimating 3 months of the new facility. So July, August, and September, hopefully, if all things go according to plan, we'll be opening that building and we'll be paying additional costs to keep that facility clean. And then, as you all are aware, we are now paying Lake Worth for dispatch services, so that's included in this budget. And we have 3 months' worth of ambulance service to the city of Fort Worth, which is estimated to be a little over $51,260 for 3 months.
I have a question about dispatch services. We were told that there would be a slight savings. Is that going to be reflected in this budget?
The $601,510 is the contract that was approved by y'all, whenever that was.
Right, but we were told that we would see a slight decrease.
So actually, when we presented that to council, the second year was going to be the first year that we didn't see any kind of decrease really. It's year 3, 4, and 5 that we start seeing those decreases. The second year was actually going to cost us a tad bit more money because of renovations that had to be done at Lake Worth to facilitate the larger comm center.
Okay.
And this
So-
is the
so
exact
next-
amount that was in that contract.
So next year, we should see a savings,
Ideally, yes, sir.
ideally. Yeah, I know.
We were informed by our cooperative that the city is part of, that we can expect to see a 5.4% increase in electric rates, so that's included, as well as utility expenses for 3 months of the new facility. So
Did you say 4%?
5.4%.
Okay, I heard you say 44%. I was about to fall out of my chair.
Sorry, 5.4%.
I'm not having a heart attack here.
So that's about another $94,000 for utility expenses. And then there's about a $4,000 increase in the Alliance for Children contribution. So that will be a total of $7,335. Those are all ongoing increases. We have a few decreases. Based on the current trends, the amount that we pay for our citizens to drop off hazardous waste, I'm projecting that to be down slightly. Based on the current trends, seems to be fewer people taking advantage of that service. We also have telephone expense savings. I don't know if y'all recall, we did a Spyglass audit. We do that every 3 to 4 years. And so they were able to find savings of about $17,000 for us in lines that are no longer used and things like that. So that's included in next year's budget.
Are we on all IP phones here, or are we still on the old digital analog? Okay.
We have more of our planning function is being done with in-house actual employees, so our contract for planning services is projected to go down, again, based on current trends. And then 16,000. And then we've decreased the economic development incentives by 20,000. There will still be a $50,000 budget there. And that's just based on what we've used in the past. We've used that line item the last few years for demolition, but other than that, we haven't spent any of that. There were a few special requests that were ongoing that we have included in the budget. The majority of the special requests for ongoing expenses were not able to be accommodated in the proposed budgets. The 3 that were included were increase in supplies and utilities for the new building for 3 months that I've already talked about, and then subscription-based office for all of the current accounts. And that's a little over 17,000, but that was added because for security purposes and efficiency. This is going to allow file sharing, and it will be cloud-based storage.
So Gabe, this is going from us buying, like Microsoft, the OS individually, to now we're buying a complete service, and we get the free upgrades. Won't be free, but it's all rolled into this, which is a huge savings and de-risked us of getting, right?
That's correct. And my understanding is that eventually Microsoft will only offer, the cloud-based service, so,
Right.
yeah.
Good.
And the departments are looking forward to that too. It'll be an efficiency thing where we can share files between departments, which currently we're not able to do.
Correct. It should probably, I would think also, if you come up and try to plug up into your computer, it'll shut your computer down, won't let you do it. Anyways, I hope
And then-
those guys shut that off.
And then I'd already mentioned the operating cost of the Saginaw Channel that was approved at the last council meeting. And so now that we're going on to one-time requests, all of the special requests that were one-time in nature are proposed in this budget. And I'll just quickly go through them. If you want to discuss it more, we can. The description of all of these special requests are also in that binder that are in your mailboxes. And then I also sent out the electronic version as well. In admin, there's a citywide leadership training. There's, as I just mentioned briefly, the ERP upgrade or conversion. We'll need to make a decision next year and get started on that. There's a fire station number 2 exhaust system included. There's the annual bunker gear replacement that is not funded with general fund revenues, that is grant funded. There's also ongoing radio replacement. 21,000 will get us about 3 radios. There's funding for dress uniforms, for 5 sets of dress uniforms for new fire personnel. There's promotional assessment services, $5,000 versus using in-house. There's a building maintenance van proposed for $80,000. Irrigation repairs along East Bailey Boswell. And then we need to continue working on aquatic center repairs. They're gonna paint floors, stain the outside wood, and then replace some of the pipe hangers in the pump room. We've got just a regular old replacement of a public services truck. We're gonna fund about $110,000 to start being more proactive in our HVAC replacement. So instead of waiting till it completely dies, we'll start working on that. So this will be in addition to our regular building maintenance fund, which also funds some of that HVAC replacement. There's a electronic plan review station. Again, and this is another efficiency thing where multiple people will be able to work on plans in an electronic way instead of using the plans and having to mark those up. There's also repair and privacy slats for the softball fields. There is funding for the replacement of the gym floor at the rec center. They're also wanting a storage building for equipment, replacing the weight room equipment. There is $7,250 for some startup costs and equipment that they're gonna need once the senior center moves to the new building. And then continued funding as is the current year, $25,000 for the SHIP program. This next slide is continuing with the one-time special requests. There's a replacement vehicle for inspections code compliance, a replacement vehicle for animal services, electrical upgrades that they want to do at the animal shelter to accommodate the emergency generator. There is year 3 of a satisfaction survey. There was a contract with On Point, I believe, is it, for 3, and we've done 2 of them. So this would fund a 3rd survey.
Do we know what type of survey that's going to be?
I don't know that that's been determined. They talk about a business survey possibly.
That's right. If you'll recall, Ron with On Point recommended doing a business survey, which I think that in past conversations with some council members, we'll bring back a follow-up from our previous survey, kind of show what we've done, which we've done a lot. And then if the council chooses to move forward, we would do a survey specific to businesses.
There's a firewall replacement for the city network. For emergency management, there's a desktop computer. In communications, there is communication certification, training for a public information officer. We talked about the city branding. You decided just to do an update of the current branding, so that's funded in here. I think they want to try actually mailing a hard copy of the Saginaw newsletter, so that's proposed in this. And then the development agreement for the square, there's still an amount owed there, and it was it's been funded for a few years, and this will just be a carry forward. It doesn't look like it'll get paid in this current year, so it's proposed for next year.
So these two, the communication certification and the public informations officer, is that kind of one and the same? Is it the public informations officer is going to get a certification? Or am I misreading that?
That's Pedro, I don't know.
Big deal.
We'll have to get back with you on that.
Okay, no problem.
I think they're two separate programs,
Okay.
but we'll verify, get back with.
Oh, yeah, I know it's definitely two separate requests, but I don't know if it's the same person. I
Yeah,
don't,
that's what I was asking. was the
Yeah.
same person. Seems like it would be, the way it's worded, but it may be just,
so that was all of the special requests that were one-time in nature. These next two pages now are the special requests that were not funded. And again, not because there wasn't a need for them, it was because our top priority was funding option 2 of the pay plan. And there's just so much capacity that we could find in this budget. So these are a list of all of the items, and I'm not going to go through each of them individually unless you would like me to.
so if you, one second, so I just wanted to say one thing to my fellow council members here. Last year, we got in a little bit of a tizzy when we went through this because there was one or two things after we done approved this that we then wanted to add to the budget. So if there's something here that you're really passionate about and you want it to be moved, say, above the line, you better speak up now, because once we set this rate, can't go back and you can take it down, you can't take it up, I think, right? So anyway, I just want to point that out, because I don't want to get into our later meetings and somebody said, well, I think this needs to be funded now. Well, like I say, as you read through these are the things they're saying be good things to fund, but there's other thing that's more important, and we're at the,
I can't emphasize enough how tight the budget is
Yeah.
in order to accommodate
And
option 2.
that's what I was bringing.
And I think the philosophy was, but the majority of these are positions, and I think the philosophy was and has been for the last few years is that we need to get our current employees up to where they should be before we add additional employees. And so that was the strategy that we used in putting this budget together. So-
One thing I want to also emphasize, Kim went through, but the cost to provide the exact same service from year to year has increased substantially.
oh, absolutely.
Electricity costs, contractual increases, so everybody's done a great job of trying to be mindful of that. Be safe, gentlemen.
Okay, so I'm not going to go through these. Again, they're all in detail in your budget, in your binders, if you want to read about those requests. So this is just like a graph of all of the other funds, a graph of the general fund. It's showing you the adopted, revised, our estimated, and then the proposed budget. Overall, revenues for the proposed budget are 11% higher than the current year adopted. So the purple line is 11% higher than the blue line on the revenue side. And on the expense side, it's 16%. The expenditures are more than revenues, but it is considered a structurally balanced budget. So even though we're spending more money than what we're bringing in, we're drawing down fund balance by about 1.8 million for those one-time special requests. And that's why I say it's a structurally balanced budget, because we are spending one-time revenue sources on one-time expenditures. But our ongoing expenditures are covered by our ongoing revenues.
So I want to add one point. We consistently are very conservative in our revenue estimates. So that's why you'll see there are mid-year adjustments. The way that's paid for is increases in fund balance that happen through the year. Sales tax greater than normal. It's better to be cautious than overly optimistic and then get into a situation where you have to, cut things. So there was, I probably shouldn't pay attention to the clown show that is Facebook, but somebody made a post a few months ago about, we're drawing down the city's reserves and all this sort of thing. No, this is a ridiculous notion. We're always in our policy guidelines, and will continue to be.
The fund balance is still more than the 25% required with our financial management policies. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Just what is the level that we maintain, and what is like state mandated for us to maintain?
Well, there is no state mandated, but our
Okay.
financial management policies say that we will have 25% of our operating. And so we are well above that. We have, so our restricted fund balance, 25% is 6.5 million. I'm projecting about 5.9 over and above what's required after we spend the 1.8.
Okay.
Now, that's going to change a little bit. There's been a short time to get all of this done, so I need to work a little bit better on my current year estimates. So it could change, but in all honesty, it will probably change for the better and be more, because I tend to estimate conservatively.
Okay, thank you.
So that's, this next slide is just the numbers that support the graph. I'm not going to go over them. I know not everybody is a number person, but as always, and I always say, if you want to talk the numbers, come on down and we'll talk about the numbers. I like the numbers. Okay, so the other fund, so on to the debt service fund. This is the other fund that's primarily, the revenue sources are property taxes. If you remember, this is where we pay for our debt service. So when we sell bonds, we're borrowing money. We have to pay back principal and interest. This is the fund that we do it. The piece of our tax rate that we call INS, interest in sinking, this is the piece that goes to the debt service fund. We also have interest earnings here, but the main expenses, again, are principal and interest. Our INS rate is going down in 2024, about 1.6 cents. That's for a couple of reasons, because obviously our values are going up, so even if we had the same amount of debt service, our rate would go down. But we also did not issue debt this year. We weren't ready to start construction on McElroy. We talked about what we were going to do, and we've got a plan for that going forward. We'll issue debt next year. But that has enabled us to use some of the property tax revenue that would go to debt service, and that is allowing us to use some of that in general fund this year because we don't need it here. What else did I want to tell you about debt service fund? I think that's it. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention here is that you'll notice that the purple bar on revenues is lower than the purple bar on expenses, and that's because you'll notice the green bar, our current year estimate, is higher. So we have interest earnings that we're getting this year that we're going to use next year. And we also had excess collections. The way our tax rate, we're required to calculate the tax rate, if we have excess collections in one year, we need to spend it down the next year. So that's what, that's the explanation for that. Again, just the numbers. You'll see what I'm talking about here. That bottom right-hand corner, we'll be using fund balance about just under $84,000, but the current year estimate, we're to the plus of about $158,000. Okay, so let's talk about our estimates that we received on Thursday. Our estimated values have gone up about 4.8% higher than our values of July last year. We broke over the 3 billion mark. We're at 3.1 billion now. Of the 4.8%, 3.8% of that increase was for existing value, and about 1% was new value. We had about $30 million in new value, $24 million of that was residential, $6 million was commercial industrial, and the biggest part of that $24 million, about $20 million of that was the Grand in Belt Mill there. I also always like to tell you the average value, the value of an average home. So last year it was $248,000. This year it's $258,000. That's about a 3.9% increase. So the average value of a home in Saginaw. And this slide is comparing our current rate to our proposed rate. Our current rate is the 49.8. The proposed rate, which again is the de minimis rate, is proposed to be 49.3. It's a decrease of about half a cent, but that doesn't mean that there'll be a tax decrease. The actual estimated increase for an average value home is $36.35 a year. So you're going from $1,240 to $1,276 if you have the average value home. Each person will be different depending on the value of their home and if their home, and how much of an increase or decrease the value of their home was in 2024. This slide, the top part is just the same as what I showed you, but the bottom part is very important. This is what is required of us in order to meet our truth in taxation requirements. So the no new revenue tax rate this year is calculated to be 49 cents, 49.0414. Our voter approval rate is 48.1669 cents, and our de minimis rate, which is the rate that we are proposing in this budget, is 49.3747 cents. Now, I know that the terminology is confusing, so I'll just remind you briefly. The no new revenue rate generates the same amount of revenue as last year on the same properties. So if your values are going up, the rate will go down. The voter approval rate is the no new revenue rate on the operating side plus 3.5% plus your debt requirements. The de minimis rate is the no new revenue tax rate plus the rate that will get you an additional $500,000, and that's the rate that we're proposing. Now, this looks a little odd because in a normal year, your voter approval rate would be higher than your no new revenue tax rate. And it's odd this year, and the reason is because the voter approval rate is adjusted for the sales tax. We have a half cent to reduce property tax, half-cent sales tax to reduce property tax. When you are calculating the voter approval rate, you have to take that into account. When you calculate the no new revenue tax rate and the de minimis tax rate, it does not take that into account. And so that's why it's a little oddball this year. And this is just a comparison of our neighboring cities or cities that are similar to us. So that's why this is included. We are early birds, and so there's no way to know what the other cities are proposing. So this is current rates. This is 2023 rates that we're comparing ourselves to here. And this is just for your information. We are the fourth lowest of these cities. And if you look at us compared to our Fort Worth, our closest neighbor, we're substantially under their rate. This was the slide that one of the council members requested. This is showing the consumer price index change from month to month in the last 12 months, and they have the latest value they have is for May. So comparing last May to this May, it's 5%. So we'll quickly go over these last two funds.
Should the number on page 19 match the number on page 20 for the Saginaw total tax rate? On page 19, it's .493747. And on page 20, it's 498769. Am I reading that right?
These are current.
Okay.
This is current right here.
Okay.
In order to compare apples to apples, I had to put our current year tax rate.
Okay,
That's number 20.
thank you.
Page 20,
Yeah.
and that's the proposed.
I just had that number, remember, when I flipped it over. I
Yeah,
couldn't
it's
see
just
the
to
same
give
thing.
you an idea of where we stand. It'll change and when we get the other
Okay.
24.
Thank you.
So one of the other funds that we haven't gone over yet is the Belt Mill PID Fund. There are no tax revenues that go into this fund. This is strictly a fund that property owners within the Belt Mill PID are assessed, and we account for the collections here. And the expenses have to be spent on, well, the administrative fees, which are P3, and then expenditures that go to benefit that Belt Mill PID, and it's included in the annual service plan update, which I think is going to be on your agenda next council meeting. This will be the fourth year that we've gotten collections, and this is the first year that we've paid the developer reimbursement. We paid 2 years' worth this year, and you'll see the expenses proposing to go down next year. That's because we'll just have the annual cost now. We just caught up in the current year. The only other change here in this fund is P3. Instead of having P3 assess or bill the assessments, Tarrant County is going to do it. They now have enough accounts that Tarrant County is going to do that. And that will also be on the next week's agenda, is a revised contract with Tarrant County to do that. Those are just the numbers that support the graph. And our last fund that we're going to talk about is the TERS fund. This is the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. This is our third year of collecting revenues here. If you recall, there's a defined zone, and we had, I believe it was 2021 was our base year, and so every year, the incremental value, 50% of that goes into the TERS funds. The other 50% we get in the general fund and the debt service fund. So this will be the third year for that, and the participants are not only City of Saginaw, but Tarrant County and Tarrant County College participate in the TERS. We do not have expenses in this fund so far. The only expenses are the administrative fees for P3, but we are collecting revenues. So that's the last fund. These are, again, the numbers that support the graphs. And that's all I've got to present. You've now had an overview of the total of the proposed budget and all of the funds. And these are the next steps. The next item on the agenda is asking you to vote on the proposed rate. That's not the same as adopting the tax rate. That will be done on the 13th. Well, it's right up here, the 13th, which will be a special council meeting. So all we're asking you to do today is to vote that this is the proposed rate. As I say every year, you're not committed to this rate. This is just the highest rate that you would adopt, and you could come down from that depending on what your will is. But we can't go over that. We can't go over that for many reasons. This is our highest rate that you could adopt, the de minimis rate. But also, if it wasn't, you would have to re-advertise and start the process over again.
I have a couple questions. One, can you tell me what over here in the not funded, can you give me, what is accounting services for 25,000?
That's actually a request for me, for my department. It's to have just outside accounting help to help current staff keep up with the new pronouncements from GASB, specifically lease accounting and subscription-based IT arrangement accounting.
Okay, got you.
So we'll, after y'all vote on the proposed tax rate tonight, we will post it to the website. We have to post it to the Tarrant Tax website. It will be in the paper. The next council meeting will also be a public hearing on the budget. It's been advertised. On Saturday, the 10th, if you all wish to have a budget retreat, then that would be scheduled for Saturday. And then the 13th, which is a special council meeting, would be the meeting that we will be asking you, it will be a public hearing on the tax rate, and we'll be asking you to adopt the budget and the tax rate.
And the meeting, the retreat on Saturday is, citizens can also come to that.
Correct. It's an advertised public meeting. So that's all I've got on the presentation. Any questions that I can answer?
No, I got a bunch of questions, none of them to be answered here, because it's, it'll take more digging into, but, yeah.
So we don't have to do anything on this one right here, right? Just go to the next one.
No, ma'am, we just need a vote on the proposed tax rate. And I have, it was it was sent out on Friday, what the notice will look like. And that's all, that was just informative. I don't have anything else to talk about on the matter, just what I just explained, that we just need a formal vote on it. You're not committed to it, you're not adopting the tax rate. It is just for the notice that needs to be publicized.
Do we have any citizens that want to talk on it?
Is there anybody that wants to, does anybody have any questions or concerns you want to talk or say anything? It's not. So now we have to have a vote. So I'll take a motion.
Mayor, or Councilmember, Valerie, which one are we doing? 2B. I move that we accept the information as in 2B.
I'll second.
Second. Take a vote, please.
No, I was just pointing out.
There it goes. So it's approved. So you're good. Okay. So I guess there's nothing else to talk about tonight? Somebody make a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second, Cindy? And Kim, I want to tell you thank you for your hard work. All of your hard work.
It's a group effort, and especially our new hire, Elizabeth, has been an immense help, and all of the department heads.